Have you ever felt like God gave you a promise and you're just waiting for it to happen? Like you're in this in-between space and you know that there's a promise, but it seems really bleak and it seems like it might even not happen. But like God kind of told you. And this might be a hard concept because for some people who aren't super close with God, like you can have this disconnect between, is this a promise or is this just like a hope or a dream? And we're going to talk about that. I want to draw attention to this verse in the Bible that I saw this week, and it reminded me of a couple of times in my life where I had a promise from God. It has been fulfilled, but it was a long time before it eventually got fulfilled. This is from Romans 4, and I actually encourage you to read the whole chapter. I'm going to just discuss one verse, or actually two verses, because it's one whole sentence. It's a really good chapter, and it's talking about Abraham, how God had promised that his wife Sarah would bear children, even though they're well past their childbearing days. But God said, like, you're going to have a ton of ancestors. They're going to be your kids. Basically, that you're going to leave this generation of children. I'm going to highlight this verse. This is verse 20 in the chapter. He did not waver at the promise of God through unbelief, but was strengthened in faith, giving glory to God, and being fully convinced that what he had promised, he was also able to perform. There's more to it, but the fact that there was not an unwavering, but a strengthening of faith. Now, I can relate to this directly. There was a point in my life where I was a high school teacher and I was having a really hard time because I had already had a child and I was going to have my second child. And I was just feeling this call that I wanted to be home. I wanted to be home with my kids. And teaching was not for me, especially with like the parents and the kids and the grading. And if you're in a public school education system lately, it's kind of scary for teachers. I had this desire to leave, and I felt it in my heart and my gut that I was going to be able to leave. So my husband and I had talked about it, and it finally came to the point of, we don't even see how it's going to work financially. We're leaving. We're going. But before that happened, I felt the promise of God in him saying, like, have faith, you're not coming back next year. So I'd already kind of started the process of like cleaning out my desk, creating a Google Drive of things that I wanted to leave for the next algebra teacher, things I wanted to leave for the next prom coordinator, gathering that materials because I had faith that it would eventually happen. I was applying for jobs. I was trying to figure out how to minimize our debt. And I kid you not, I was driving to the school like crying, sobbing, and I was listening to the same song on repeat. It's Maverick City Promises. I think I had listened to that song for about 2 years. My son knows that song from heart because that was the song that he listened to while we were driving to the daycare and then I was going to the school. Literally, I could start the song when I left my house, and by the time I got to the daycare, and it's a long song, it was ending. Like, it just worked. And then there was like 2 minutes till the school. So I could collect myself and walk into the school. But for me, with the anxiety of teaching and everything going on, it just like wasn't working for me. So I had this belief that we were going to leave teaching. Now I did leave. My husband and I just made the decision that we were going to trust God with our finances, trust God with trying to figure everything out. And we were working on it, but in the trusting of him, I did leave. That was the first part of the promise, but I kid you not, like leaving teaching, that whole year after that, I was used to always doing something. So if you're a teacher, you know, like you have to continue working on something. You could be lesson planning, you could be grading, you could be sending emails to parents, you could be catching up with that one student, trying to see like how you can tutor them back to where they need to be. Like there's always something to do as a teacher. There's no rest. And as a mom, you can make sure that there's always something to do, but it's different because there is no leaving the home. Whereas in teaching, you could leave the home or you could leave the classroom and you're technically done. Like, I know I would take homework home on the weekends and I would grade homework, but there is that disconnect between leaving the classroom if you keep your email only on your classroom computer versus your phone. Whereas as a mom, like you are momming from breakfast until dinner, actually until bedtime, and then you're trying to recollect yourself. So I was struggling with trying to figure out what my indicators were that I was good enough. As a teacher, sometimes you have indicators of like your kids are successfully passing the state exam, or a parent emails you and says you're doing a great job, or your principal emails you or whatever. And sometimes there's not any of that for teachers. But as a mom, it didn't feel like there was an indicator. It felt like I could be doing something more. And with our financial, it felt like I needed to be doing more financially. So fast forward through all these like breakthroughs I had to have, like connecting with God, praying to Him, asking Him for help in these different scenarios of life. We ended up selling my car because that car was putting us into more debt because we still had to pay the monthly bill and there was still a lot of debt associated with that. So we paid that debt off, and then we got that payment back where we didn't have to pay that anymore. And we went to a single family car. And there was a whole ordeal in that, like learning how to meal plan and only go shopping once a week. Like there's a whole thing in that. But there was a day. It was a Sunday, and it was a Sunday about a year after. So there had already been a school year. I'd gone to a graduation, everything. There had been a summer, and it was a year after that where I finally felt like I was at peace with my momming abilities. But school was starting, and I was connecting with my teacher friends, and they were discussing their plans for the next school year. There was a Sunday, like shortly during that first week of school starting, and it was on a Sunday. And if you know anything about Sundays as a teacher, there's the Sunday scaries, because you're like, oh my gosh, what is this week going to have in store for me? And it's just really kind of like a lot of pressure to have a great Sunday because your Monday may be terrible. And it was a Sunday where I would normally be fretting and stressing about the Monday. We had some extra time after lunch, after nap, and all of us as a family drove to the park. We had a great time at the park, and we were driving home, and I had this feeling in my gut. And I was like listening to my son, like, I love you, like just, you know, expressing his love, expressing how much fun it was at the park. And our daughter, who was like still a baby, but she's just babbling in the back, and we're just chatting as a family. I'm holding my husband's hand, had this like sense of, I promised you this. And I kid you not, my husband looks out the window and he says, oh, look, a rainbow. Like, wow, if that was not an indicator of anything. So because I've been through that, because I've been through other situations where there has been a promise and it has been fulfilled, even through years of trials, I am faithful in knowing that there's going to be a fulfilling of the next promise. So right now we're in this transition area in between, like still trying to get out of debt, but also trying to figure out what we're doing with the next season of our life. And I feel like we had been in this season where we had sold the car and been a single family car for almost a year. And then there was a whole change, a whole turnaround. And I'll probably discuss it later, but obviously we have another car for me. And there's a couple of things going on in our life right now that are indicating that a new season is coming. The old season is finally leaving, and I'm so excited about that. Like, I just finished the business taxes. You guys, I just finished them. I submitted them today. So that chapter is officially closing. It was the final tax return. Like, we're done. We're done with that. And there was like a text that I received that something else was going to happen today. I'm like, what a crazy thing to be like, done with that. A few minutes later, we get a text that there's something else happening. I'm just so excited. If you are in a low season, if you're in a hard season, I know. I've been there with you, and I want you to have faith that there's a new season coming, because seasons always change. You're not going to stay in the same season forever. You're not going to be in the fantastic season forever. You're not going to be in the low valley forever. You're going to come to a new season, and you need to see what you need to be taught in this season. In this season of a single family car life, I learned how to meal plan like a boss. I learned how to, that was such a dating reference. I learned how to meal plan really, really well. There's a few other things I learned, but I'm very proud of the skill of meal planning that I have learned. And I do want to make that into a series at some point. So if you're feeling the call to be a stay-at-home mom and you don't know how that's going to work out financially with you being in your kids, like, know that God has found a way to provide, even if it's not in a financial money perspective. In leaving teaching, I also did not have to take my kids to daycare, which was a huge chunk of my teaching salary anyway. If you're trying to become debt-free, maybe switch your careers, you're just feeling this switch in the financial season, trust that God can make a way, but also remain close to Him in trying to figure that plan out. Because if you're over here like, I'm going to move this money and move it here and I'm going to do this, and like, yes, you can have knowledge, but also pray about it because it was God's money first and he gave it to you. And some people may not believe that in tithe, but I strongly encourage you not to rely on your own whims in trying to get yourself out of whatever season you're in or into your new promise. And if you're looking for personal growth, maybe you're asking God to change a habit, grow your faith, he is working in you. And you can never really see an immediate result. For example, the whole meal planning skill that I learned, there was definitely not an immediate result. And there were a lot of mistakes in the beginning. Several months later, I have seen a huge improvement in that part. And those mistakes are helping me be a better meal planner and meal prepper of sorts in this season. Also want to do a sidebar because I struggled with this part too, where it was like, is this a promise or is this my own desire and my own hope? In today's day and age with social media and all these factors yelling at you and telling you this and telling you that, and this social media ministry influencer is telling you this way or any other way, the true authentic God is not found in social media, and it is not found in your friends, and it's not found in me. They say the only way to see an authentic piece of money and to know what a fraud is to spend time with the real ones. So if you're handling money all day and you get a fraud $100 bill or something, it's kind of easy to see that it's fake before you even put it under the scanner of sorts or you use the pen on it. And in that, the only way to see what your authentic God is to spend time with him. Spend time in the Bible with him for sure, because that is where the truth is. Literally, it's the living truth, but also spending time with him in prayer. Now, I talk to my God like he's my BFF sometimes. There are a lot of times where I'm like, thank you, thank you, thank you. Please help us. Amen. But there are times where I'm driving and I'm just feeling this nagging, anxiety, stress coming on. And it makes me feel better when I talk to him. God, you understand what's going on. You know where my heart is. You know where my hopes and dreams are. Are we going to be able to do this? If not, just tell me now so we're not going to be able to do this. Or help me figure out how we should get out of debt. Should I do this? Should I do this? Should I do this? And sometimes he'll help give you signs of ways you can get to that next promise. And other times you can just feel it. But you're not going to if you don't spend time with him. You're not going to be able to pray with him the first time in a month and expect him to give you an answer right then. It is a constant communication with him. So if you have doubt, that's okay. That is totally normal. I still have doubt. Are you sure, God, that this is the promise that I am having, or is it just a dream that I have? I still have doubt, but I'm praying about it. I actually want to know this about you because I am interested. Let me know in the comments. What is a hope or a promise that you are waiting for right now, that you're just holding on to? Maybe it's something you've seen fulfilled. Maybe it's something you're still waiting on. I genuinely want to know. Let me know in the comments. So whatever promise that God has placed in your heart, I want you to keep holding on to that. Even if it takes longer, even if the doubt comes in, I need you to keep walking, keep praying in the faith. He's the one that's going to guide you through this. So this week, my little call to action, when you are angry or frustrated, or you're just I don't see how this is going to work, instead of venting to your friend or typing out a social media post, I want you to first go to God about it. Vent it to God if that's going to make you feel better. But he is listening and he wants to hear from you. So talk to him. Okay, y'all, it is getting hot out here because it's starting to get summer here, and trying to do this in the car without having the car on, I'm going to need to figure out a different studio situation. But I hope you have a great week, and I will see you guys next Monday.